Hello, and thank you for joining College to Consulting. Today's class is actually one of my favorites to teach, which is pricing, how to approach a pricing problem. And pricing is actually really, really fun. McKinsey has a very strong practice, as well as Accenture. They both have very, very strong pricing practices. And after this class, you might end up going to a grocery store and just looking at whatever you usually buy and thinking, is this the right price? You'll probably be neurotic about pricing, but you know what? I encourage that because it'll help you exercise your skills and really learn how to do pricing cases. Okay, let's pretend this is a case that you get. How would you price product X? So what we're going to always do is we're going to have our framework, and we're going to look at the macro level view first, which is always the market. So here I'm going to write what the product is, who the competitors are, and what the industry is like. How has the industry changed? What are substitutes, etc. Then I'm going to go into pricing. So micro level view. For this company, how do they price product X? We're going to look at several methods. The first is called cost plus. Now cost plus is essentially just figuring out how much does it cost to make this product, bare bones break even, so we can't go below that cost, and just what is the industry profit margin that we can tackle onto that. So what it will be is I need to look at fixed cost, variable cost, in order to figure out what my total costs are. Once I can figure that out, I need to know what the profit margin is, the average profit margin for this product. I could tackle that on or put that on, and then now I know that I can't go below this certain cost, and here's the profit margin I'm looking for. This is what cost plus this profit margin should be. Okay? Next is competitor pricing, and this is pretty straightforward. It's essentially what are my competitors pricing for this product, as well as what are the prices of substitutes. This is something to really think about, because if you go through a different substitute, now you basically you change the price of that product. The last one is called value-based. Now value-based is a very simple concept, but it's what are consumers willing to pay? It's not the same as competitor pricing or cost plus. It's now for the consumer. If they are willing to pay more, then we can charge them more. Okay? So once you get all these three concepts, we will look at elasticity. And elasticity is essentially the change in demand by the change in price. If I increase my prices by $1, how much demand should decrease? That's essentially what it means. So to look at that, we need to know total revenue. And then what we can do is we can recalculate units. So units that are sold. So this is a general framework of how to tackle a pricing case. Okay, let's go into this in more depth. So you should use 3 pricing strategies to find your range, and then go the extra step with elasticity. A lot of people, when they do pricing, they only look at 2 possible ways to do pricing, and that's about it. I'm going to go over 3, and then we're going to use elasticity as frosting on the cake. The very cheap cake, or maybe expensive cake. Anyway, let's say on the bottom right, we're looking for the most optimal price to price product X. First thing we're going to do is cost plus. Now, cost plus again is it's basically forming the calculation of how much something costs to make, bare bones. So where I will make 0 profit on it. How much does it just cost to make it? And then finding the profit margin, tackling it on. So what we need to do is find first the total variable cost per unit, raw material, wages, etc. How much variable cost goes into producing one product X, okay? Then we need to find the total fixed cost. So again, real estate, marketing, overhead, rent, all that type of stuff, and divide by all the units that were produced. The reason why we're dividing all fixed costs by the total number of units that were produced is now we can find the total fixed costs per unit. So again, in the first example with total variable cost, it's how much cost goes into making 1 unit of whatever. So let's do an example of Coca-Cola. How much stuff goes into making 1 bottle of Coca-Cola? Great. Now we have total fixed costs. How much, if we were to take rent and overhead and salary and marketing and all this stuff, and if we were to put it into the cost per 1 bottle, how much would that be? So once you get that, you can add the total variable cost and fixed costs to find the total cost per unit. And then you can multiply it back by all the units. Another thing you could do is, if you're kind of given this information already and you don't need to divide by the total number of units, you have total variable cost, total fixed cost, you're good. All you need to do is add those two together to find the total cost. But that's what we're trying to get at, okay? So now let's say this. We have a bottle of Coca-Cola. Let's say for the variable cost, the plastic and the liquid material and all this and the packaging and all that stuff, let's say that total is 10 cents, okay? And let's say for the fixed costs, all that stuff like overhead and rent and salary and whatever, when you divide it out by all the products, all the bottles that are produced, let's say for a bottle of Coca-Cola, that's another 10 cents. So just make it easy. If I add the variable costs and fixed costs, that means that it's costing me 20 cents to make one bottle of Coca-Cola. So I cannot go below that number at all. So now we have a floor. The next thing we're going to look at is competitor pricing. What are competitors pricing for beverages as well? Or very similar beverages. And so what you want to do is you want to find the average of competitor prices. Now again, remember, when you ask for data, you don't ask for data saying, do we have any information on competitor prices? That's a terrible way to ask for data. A better way to do it is say, I would assume that competitors who make something similar are charging something that's relatively within the same range as what we charge. Do we have any information to support or negate this hypothesis? A much stronger way to ask for that type of information on what competitors are pricing. Okay, and the next one is value-based. Now, value-based is you're finding what customers are willing to pay and if it's in alignment with prices. So how much would a customer be willing to pay for a bottle of Coca-Cola? $1, I don't know, $2, $3, 50 cents, 5 cents, whatever. So now what we're doing is we're essentially gauging all the different prices. We're trying to find what's the best price. So we have a floor, which you cannot go below. We have competitor prices, which are essentially giving us a good average of where to be, and then value-based, so what are consumers willing to pay? And I'll give you a very, very good example. I've been using Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola and soft drinks and all that stuff is actually really, really, really cheap to make, but you notice that Coke and Pepsi never get into a price war, because if they get into a price war, it's going to be a race to the bottom, meaning that it's going to be them charging 5 cents per bottle because it costs them maybe 4 cents per bottle. So instead what they do is they look at what are they both kind of charging and what are customers willing to pay. If customers are willing to pay $1 for a bottle of Coke, even though it costs Coke maybe only 5 cents or 10 cents or whatever to make, now they know where to kind of price it. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So you have three prices to look at. You have an absolute floor, which is cost plus, competitor prices, and value-based prices, or what customers are willing to pay. The last step we're going to look at is called elasticity. And what you can do is you can ask for different prices or units that are being sold and charged. And now you can determine if elasticity is straight or if it's curved. And I'll do an example in the next slide, but that's something to really just consider. So look for 3 possible prices and look for the new amounts of units that will be sold to determine the best price. Let's do an example. Again, sometimes with elasticity, the best option is not always to decrease prices, but sometimes to actually increase the price, sell less volume, or maybe vice versa. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a table for elasticity. I'm going to put in what are the different options of prices, price per unit, how much projected units are expected to be sold, and the total revenue we would get. So what this looks like this. Option 1, let's say this. For this product that we're looking at, option 1, we can price it at $5. If we price it at $5, we'll sell 100 units of this product, meaning my total revenue is $500, right? That's option 1. Option 2, let's say we sell this unit for $10 and the projected units that are sold are 80. Now I'm actually selling it for more money, but I'm making less, or I'm selling fewer units, but I'm making more revenue overall. And the last option is option 3. Say we sell it for $20, so we increase the price of this unit of whatever we're selling by a lot. Now let's say I'm only selling 60 units though, but my total revenue is $1,200. So looking at all this, we could see that if we were to look at pricing, that elasticity show me that selling the product at a higher price but fewer units results in more total revenue. Okay, so we've gone over the different parts of pricing. You have your cost plus model, which is what's the bare minimum and adding a industry profit margin on top of that. You have your competitor model, which is what are competitors pricing on average, and your value base, what are consumers willing to pay. And by looking at these three, you should be able to gauge a good price as well as elasticity, determine what is the most optimal price to make the most total revenue or total profit for your product. Okay. Check out some of the additional practices and exercises that we have on the site to help you get a better sense of how to deal with pricing. All right, I will see you in the next class.